You faced danger with the Dark Knight, battled alongside the world's greatest duelist. Now, prepare to meet the next great action hero.
Huh? Oh, great. But hey, don't look so worried. I'm a hero.
Did you ever notice just how many anime adaptations and spin-offs of video games we got in the 2000s? There had been OVAs and weird little western cartoons of Japanese video games before, but it wasn't until longer running and massively successful series like Pokemon and Digimon came out that the floodgates really opened. And next thing you know, we have a Mega Man anime, a Kirby anime, F-Zero, and that's not even including the Japanese exclusive anime like Bomberman Jetters or Parappa's anime, which you can watch my video on here. The one I want to talk about today though concerns a Capcom series that's gone a bit neglected. I'm talking about Viewtiful Joe, and after watching all 51 episodes of his anime, I can safely say, it's okay.
Check it out, it's the limited edition Captain Blue 25th anniversary action figure. It's like in mint condition.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you've been obsessed with Captain Blue since 2nd grade, buying all the toys and everything, and...
collectibles.
Whatever, but you might want to start branching out.
So for everyone who doesn't know what Viewtiful Joe is, it's a Capcom game about a man-child named Joe who's obsessed with the tokusatsu superhero Captain Blue. The game starts with him watching one of Captain Blue's old films in an empty theater with his girlfriend Sylvia, when the giant mecha Captain Blue was fighting reaches through the screen and pulls Sylvia inside the movie. Another mech isekais Joe into the magical world of Movieland, and then he obtains the V-Watch from Captain Blue, which allows him to transform into his superhero alter ego when he says those magical words.
Head to the go-go, baby!
When he becomes the hero, Viewtiful Joe, he also gains the powers of Mach Speed, Slow Motion, and Zoom, which lets him see his opponent's weak points. Remember when Chopper used to do that? As the story progresses, he obtains abilities you can unlock in the games too, which is a nice touch. This anime more or less starts the same way as the first game, but as with most adaptations, they introduce original characters and plot lines, and things go off rails pretty quick. We still follow Joe on his quest to rescue Sylvia and find out what happened to Captain Blue, who also mysteriously disappears. But he's going off on side quests for the most part, and by the 5th episode, he gets an OC sidekick named Captain Blue Jr. Jr. doesn't have powers like Joe, but his reputation as a hero surpasses Joe's, which leads to his jealousy. They also have that classic idiot savant leader and competent but weaker sidekick chemistry that you've seen a million times before. I think it works here because they never go too far in either direction though. Joe can stop being a dumbass when it counts, and Junior has plenty of moments where his immature side comes out, cause you know, he's still a child. Your average episode will follow Joe and Junior coming across a different town and rescuing it from the threat of Jado, an evil organization that wants to take over the world. They also happen to be the ones that kidnap Sylvia. Half of these guys are the comic reliefs who serve as the most recurring villains, but there is an interesting antagonist in Alastor, Joe's main rival. He's more anti-hero than straight up villain. In most episodes he appears in, he actually helps Joe because all he really wants is a fight against him at full power. There's an episode where all he does is talk to Joe and Sylvia to try and figure out what makes Joe such a weird dude too, but he ends up discovering Sylvia is just as delusional as Joe.
I'm a princess, Rapunzel, except with glasses and smarter, and Joe's the prince, only way cooler. He'll ride up on his white horse and rescue me, and then we'll catch a French movie or something.
I think Viewtiful Joe is a testament to the power of a good art style being timeless. It's one of those games I fell in love with and used to replay as a child, mostly for its aesthetic, and I still think it holds up today. It goes without saying the anime's art style stands out and holds up as well. Cell shading in video games already works to make 3D objects look like cartoons, so it translates to 2D perfectly. All the characters maintain their high contrast shading, and it just looks nice. It really reminded me of shows like Black Dynamite and The Amazing Spies. You know, that Totally Spies spinoff, but without the weird fetish stuff. Never mind. Viewtiful Joe was produced by the now defunct group TAC, the same animation studio who worked on classics like Street Fighter II the movie, Street Fighter II V, and Those Who Hunt Elves. And while Viewtiful Joe may not be as detailed as their previous work, it still shows they had experience working with action-heavy anime before, which pays off for a show like Viewtiful Joe. I think they did a decent job here.
I think it's perfect just how it is.
Something else I really liked about this show was how it took advantage of its setting. You know, being in a fictional movie land where genres blend and the world operates on movie rules. One episode might have an anachronistic Joe and Junior fighting for a kingdom's freedom, and another might have them in some town that's been stripped of its color. Even Joe's powers are just based on visual effects. I really like the gag of these minion guys called Bianchis physically editing the film of one of their fights with Joe to make it seem like they won too. They do this a couple of times actually, which made me wonder, how did they get this film in the first place? We never actually see a camera filming their fights, so are we just to assume everyone's magically being recorded at all times and the concept of privacy doesn't exist in Movieland? Well, no. It's actually explained in the season 1 finale, where it's revealed that the secret leader of Jado was Captain Blue all along, and he's Sylvia's father. Turns out he was a washed out film director who loved his film so much he got sucked into Movieland as Captain Blue. But his love for films and his neglect towards his family allowed the seeds of evil to corrupt him from the inside. He pulled Joe and Sylvia into Movieland because he wanted them to play a role in the movie that he was actually filming the entire time. Meaning there were cameras on Joe, we just couldn't see them. With that said, I did enjoy the season 1 finale. Joe's defeated and disappointed that his hero was a bad guy, but through the power of everyone he and Junior helped throughout the show, they give him the strength to fight and save the day. And I'll admit it, I'm such a sucker for a good power of friendship moment. I think we need to stop shaming those. They're okay when they're not overused, but save for important moments like this. By the second season, Captain Blue has gotten rid of the evil within his heart and he's rejoined the good side. But I need to stop before I go any further. The second half of this show never got a single DVD release, even in its home country of Japan, meaning that if you want to watch the Viewtiful Joe anime in full, you'll have to resort to low-quality fan-recorded airings of the show in either Japanese or Portuguese. The reason why you'll have to watch in those languages is because the second season never received a dub in English or aired in America either. As for why, I'm not entirely certain, but if I had to speculate, I would say it was a combination of the Viewtiful Joe brand losing relevance and Genion, the anime's distributor, shutting down in 2007. To this very day, the last Viewtiful Joe games to be released were Red Hot Rumble and Double Trouble, both released back in 2005, and neither of them were very successful. Hell, the first game wasn't really successful either, but its low budget kept the series afloat. Couple that with the fact Genion was already struggling with declining DVD sales and failed partnerships in 2006, the same year the second season was slated to be released, and well, yeah, you can see how a series like Viewtiful Joe would be a low priority for them. Apparently Crunchyroll owned the license to the show for a short while too, but when I went to watch the second season there, hoping for better quality, I couldn't watch it because it was unavailable. I'm assuming that the license expired because I even tried watching with a VPN thinking it was region locked or something, but no dice. You can still find it online if you really care though, just, not in English. And here's another fun fact about this show's airing history. Kids WB started airing it in November of 2005, but they began with the 5th episode so they could later air the first 3 episodes in a special event flashing back to Joe's origins. I think that's a clever idea, and I'm pretty sure channels airing episodes out of production order happens more often than we think. Maybe not as much with these serialized ones though. But anyways, season 2. I didn't really enjoy this season as much as the first one, and that's partially because only the first half of it was subbed. I still got the gist of the rest of the show though. This one loosely follows the plot of the second game, which pretty much followed the plot of the first game. Joe and Sylvia and everyone have left Movieland, but now they have to stop the new threat, Jado. Also, Joe's father is here, and it turns out he's a hero known as Jet Black. And get this, the leader of Jado is known as the Black Emperor, kinda like how Captain Blue's evil evil alter ego was King Blue. You can put the rest together yourself. Our main cast grows larger this season, and Sylvia and Junior both obtain V-Watches to become heroes as well. But Captain Blue doesn't stick around for long because Jetto turns him into a hammer, and then they use him to corrupt parodies of popular films and give them unhappy endings. That's quite a switch up from the video game where they turn him into a rainbow Oscar, which represents the power of happy endings or something along those lines. It doesn't matter. In the Wizard of Oz parody, for instance, Dorothy becomes the Twister, and in the Mighty Ducks parody, the team turns into a bunch of jerks who terrorize their town. It's actually pretty funny watching a bunch of little shits bully these adults. But of course it's revealed they weren't acting of their own free will, which would have been funnier. Each episode ends with our gang returning things to normal and saving the day, but when they try to retrieve the Captain Blue hammer, this weirdly erotic android who works for Jetto steals it back and goes on to corrupt another film. Later on, that android switches sides and we start to explore some characters besides Joe in the gang, but by this point I was honestly starting to feel burned out on the show because of how formulaic its Monster of the Week plots became. Sad to say, I wasn't a huge fan of this series finale either. They do this thing I hate, where the primary antagonist we're fighting for a majority of the story is revealed to have been controlled by an even more malevolent force that's hardly hinted to at all. Even the humor in this season went downhill for me. Don't get me wrong, the first season had plenty of references and tired jokes they love to repeat, like Joe loving cheeseburgers.
Still breakfast, and that's already your 7th cheeseburger.
It's the most important meal of the day!
But it's just more of that in this season, with the added bonus of everything being a movie reference. It's fun in doses, but not so much when that's what the entire season is about. This show did have its moments that made me chuckle though. I already mentioned the film editing joke, but I like this one where Joe infiltrated one of the Jetto's members' bases and the Bianchis started attacking him not because he was snooping around, but because he made a mess where they just finished cleaning. I think Joe kinda breaks the fourth wall and makes a joke about wraparound backgrounds too, which again plays into the whole being in Movieland thing.
Not this same background again.
Sometimes to save money, our animators will reuse the same backgrounds over and over and over again.
All in all, I'd say it's a decent show. Not the best, not the worst, just decent for a children's anime. And listen, if I'm being honest, after replaying that first game and watching this anime, I can kinda see why the Viewtiful Joe series didn't really last. It has style for sure, but if you take that away, what else makes those games and this anime stand out? I'm asking all of you Viewtiful Joe fans because I don't know. This show isn't another case of some obscure 2000s anime being an underrated hidden gem or anything like that. It's just fine, and fine is fine. If you have any interest in Viewtiful Joe at all, then I think season 1 is worth a watch, and if it's not your cup of tea, just drop it. You're not really missing anything here. I don't want it to sound like I'm disrespecting Viewtiful Joe as a whole though, because this series represents something I miss from modern gaming. A weird game from AAA developers that was given multiple opportunities to become something great rather than being tossed to the wayside immediately. I may not be the biggest fan of this series, but I still love that aspect of it. I would end this video with a plea to bring back anime adaptations of video games, but I think we're doing a pretty good job with those. Capcom being one of the more prolific companies to release these adaptations. How many people even remember we got an Ace Attorney, Onimusha, or Dragon's Dogma anime a while ago? 2 of those were really enjoyable from what I can remember. One of them I may need to revisit in the near future. Viewtiful Joe, forever the second best superhero game Kamiya has ever worked on.